When it happened, she didn't say, "Honey, we need to talk." I guess I should have seen it coming, but like most people comfortable in their lives, I ignored the signs until it was right in front of me. Some of us can be too trusting, but it happened and we better get to it. My wife and I lived in a cul-de-sac. The 6 homes along the front end were modest 3-bedroom houses, while the 4 toward the back were larger 4-bedroom homes with more property. Living in the first corner home, I had never met or been invited into the bigger houses up the street until the first block party the Goldsteins threw, inviting everyone. My wife Marcy, 47, and I, Rick, 48, are empty nesters since our youngest son Kyle, 18, went to college upstate and our daughter Rhonda, 20, joined the Navy, much to her father's chagrin. I'm still adjusting to civilian life after almost 30 years in the Army. We are the Westons. So there we were at the Goldsteins' backyard. Marcy was trying to endure Chuck Marston from across the street, who was talking her ear off. Chuck was probably trying to impress her with his stories rather than focusing on the topic itself. She rolled her eyes at me, giving me her save me signal by scratching her nose. Meanwhile, I was engaged in conversation with Jenny, a single mom whose husband had left her with 2 kids and a weight loss journey. Jenny had lost the pounds at the gym and was enthusiastically sharing her fitness tips. I smiled at my wife and scratched my own nose. She shot me a look that clearly said, "Stop talking to the blonde and come rescue me." Looking for a way to help, I took Jenny by the hand and led her over to Marcy and Chuck. "Chuck," I said, reaching over to shake his hand, "have you met Jenny?" He looked a bit confused but managed to pull it together and shake Jenny's hand. Seizing the opportunity, I rescued my wife. "My hero," she said, giving me a look that showed her amusement was waning. "Took you long enough. Let's go home. I need to get to the airport early for my flight." On our way out, we passed a young couple, the Nealons. Vincent Nalon nodded to me as he made way, while his wife Leslie smiled politely. We had done the obligatory chat with them, so we just walked on. For some reason, Vinnie glanced at me, and Leslie's gaze seemed a bit strange, as if she was contemplating something, with a hint that felt unsettling. The way they looked at each other, then back at us, suggested a shared secret, almost conspiratorial. After years in service, especially my last year spent in the intelligence branch, I had become a bit jumpy and eternally watchful. But I followed Marcy, hoping for some pre-trip intimacy. We weren't strangers to separations. I had flown off to wars and training missions for years. My posting in Korea had nearly strained our marriage as we only saw each other twice that year. It was supposed to be 4 times, but we had a nasty argument in Hawaii, nearly leading to divorce. Long story short, years of military life take a toll on any marriage. The separations, stress, and distractions. Yeah, you get it. I knew Marcy had lost some of her spark when I returned, but we managed to get back on track. Still, I sensed something had shifted during those months apart. It's a common issue in military marriages. We all like to think that military personnel and their spouses are angels, but the reality is that we're all flawed. Most civilians don't understand the stress we endure. I don't expect you to understand if you haven't lived it. Even some in the service choose to ignore the reality of their situation, pretending their lives are ordinary. But they're not. The truth is, we have a higher than average divorce and infidelity rate. Go ahead, shoot the messenger. After years of service, I've come to realize how lucky Marcy and I are to still be together, even knowing she might have strayed while I was away. How did I know? Because while I was deployed, Marcy and the kids went back to our hometown. While there, she got a job at the local hospital, which was near a hotel where my ex-girlfriend from high school worked as a manager. Lydia let me know when I was still in Korea, but she didn't have definitive proof, so I hired an investigator to follow Marcy. I felt foolish when I received the report. The hospital was renovating, and their parking lot was a construction site with only half the spots available. So Marcy had to park at the red roof and lot, as did many of the nurses and orderlies. However, there was a timing issue. Marcy always showed up 90 minutes to 2 hours early for her shifts, but that had stopped when I returned home. If Marcy had been seeing someone, there was no way to know. Lydia could have been wrong or right, but it was enough for me to realize I was neglecting my wife. I worried that Marcy could have been seeking companionship elsewhere since I wasn't around. There's nothing worse than knowing and not being sure. Having been posted to Korea once, I knew I would never have to go there again. A year is a long time to lose from one's family. An entire year of lost connection with my children that I would never get back. Any notion I had that our marriage was unshakable was gone. Who the other man might have been, I would never know. All I knew was that we had young children then, and I wanted to keep our family together. Marcy seemed determined to solve our issues rather than leave, and so did I. But I had to give up something dear to me. Flying. Being an Army helicopter pilot can be dangerous. Having flown Apache gunships in Desert Storm and during peacetime, I knew how lucky I was not to have crashed or worse, suffered serious injury. I was starting to see a decline in my reflexes, and that was the final straw. When the opportunity to switch to Army intelligence came, I took it. It meant less dangerous assignments and, better yet, more time at home. I did deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan 3 times after September 11th, but in my new capacity as an Army intelligence officer, I was safe in the rear, as they say in combat. This brought Marcy peace of mind, but I still worried about how things were at home. Hearing about marriage after military marriage failing over the years affected me. On my last deployment, I knew I had enough. Instead of attending Army Command and Staff College, the prerequisite for becoming a general, I decided it was time to get out. It hurt, but I realized that Marcy and I had almost lost each other and broken up our family twice. The odds of our survival if I stayed in for those stars that may or may not come were not good. After retiring, the job I landed as a consultant brought in more money than had I stayed and become a general. Did I miss it? Sure I did. But some things in life are more important than others. I was there for my daughter's senior year in high school, and I saw both my children graduate. I still had my wife, and that was priceless. Marcy had continued with her nursing education and was now the lead nurse on a hospital surgical team specializing in brain surgery. The hospital had a group of brain surgeons, but 3 stood out. A retiring older doctor, a woman in her mid-40s, and a new talent who had joined them that year, Dr. Trey. I had met him a few times at parties. Being tall and handsome, Dr. Trey was typical of specialist surgeons, confident and self-assured. I could tell he admired Marcy, who kept herself in great shape. Did I mention she had been a cheerleader in college and a long-distance runner? Well, at 47, she had the figure of someone much younger, something Dr. Trey definitely noticed. I had caught him looking at her when he thought I wasn't watching at social gatherings. I could just imagine how he interacted with her at work when I wasn't around. Much to my dismay, she often praised Dr. Trey's skills and mentioned he would be the next leader of the hospital surgical team. I started to worry. The one time I brought it up, she paused before responding. I understand how you feel, Rick, but this is my job. I have to work with these doctors. Frankly, they can be quite aggressive with us nurses. It helps us all relax after a very stressful moment when the doctors manage to save a patient. The flirting is a relief mechanism, and once the seriousness returns, no one crosses the line. What about in between, Marcy? Do you just turn it off when you go to his office or lunch? How does this work? I asked, concerned about her interactions with another man. Do you remember how you and that CI were a team before you deployed to Iraq? Yes, but we didn't, she started to say. How do I know what you did or didn't do? I interrupted. she replied mockingly. I know that she was smitten with you before you deployed. If I had told her it was okay, she would have gone for it. Marcy, nothing happened with Deidre. So you say, Rick, I had to trust you with Deidre, so now you have to trust me. It had not been a good evening after that. It has been 4 months since that conversation, and the issue hung in the background of our life like an ominous cloud. If they were doing anything, they were doing it at work. But I have been in hospitals enough to know there were plenty of rooms and offices unoccupied for people to find privacy. Her early arrivals in the past haunted me, but she did have a point. I either trusted her or I didn't. The thing is, Marcy was also justified in being suspicious. Deidre Heel had indeed offered her companionship to me in Iraq, and once, after we survived a roadside ambush, she cornered me in an unoccupied office. Not having connected with anyone in 3 months, I almost gave in to her advances. We were thinking of moving forward when the sirens went off and the base was under mortar and rocket attack. We took it as a sign to be wary and never crossed that line again. At first, I felt guilty, but then I remembered what Marcy had done when I was in Korea and told myself if she could do it, so could I. This was my turn to act on impulse, thinking it was just a fleeting moment that would never affect my relationship with Marcy. I was fooling myself. So here we were, 2 people who had strayed, still married to each other and discussing trust. Yet considering how Marcy was still attentive and loving, I figured I had been paranoid due to our past. I was almost positive she had been unfaithful back then, but almost doesn't make it fact. On the other hand, I knew I had not fully crossed that line. Now their entire team was on the way to South America for a Doctors Without Borders excursion, providing surgery for underserved populations in 5 countries for nearly 6 weeks. Marcy knew I was not keen on Dr. Trey, but this trip was not something she would pass on for her career, nor was I going to make waves considering how supportive she had been of my military career. I've stayed home many times for you, she had said, not knowing if you were still alive or dead. Suppose you had crashed or been taken prisoner like those men and women in Desert Storm. I would have had to raise 2 children alone. I did my part. Now it's your turn to wait for me. What could I say to that? Things were a bit strained in the morning when she left for the airport. The night before, she had spent a lot of time packing and talking on the phone to her mother, which I found irritating as it cut into our time together. Not wanting to start an argument, I let her do her thing and went to bed. I woke the following day to find her gone. No message, no kiss goodbye, nothing. I looked around the house in case she left a note, but there was nothing to find, just the missing clothes she had packed and her laptop. I checked my phone for messages, but there were none. To say I was annoyed and worried about the way she left would be an understatement. I was furious. After making some coffee and calming down, I looked up her flight. It was on its way to Colombia, their first stop. It would land in a few hours and hopefully, she would text or call from there. Oh well, I thought. Just another chapter in our marriage. Only she didn't call or text or anything. After double-checking that her flight had landed in Bogota, I debated contacting her. But all I sent was a short text. I hope you are doing well. Nice way for you to leave, Marcy. Speaks volumes. I received no reply, not the next day or the day after. Running had always kept me focused when I was stressed, and this time was no different. It took all my self-control to maintain a steady pace, but my frustration and anger at my wife's silence drove me to run faster than usual. By the time I reached our cul-de-sac and sprinted the last block, I was out of breath and gasping for air. Rick, are you okay? I heard a familiar male voice ask. Looking up, I saw Vince Nalon in his front yard. They didn't live in the cul-de-sac, but their house was just behind ours, with our backyards separated by a small fence and a gate we never locked. Just past him, I saw his young wife on her knees, working on the flower bed. Nice, I thought, as Vinny turned to see what I was staring at. Nice view, eh? He asked with a suggestive smile. I looked away and just nodded, my mind too preoccupied to take it all in. Vince, I'm tired from my run and need to hit the shower. Catch you another time, I said. Sure, he replied. Les and I would love to have you over. I mean both you and Marcy, he added. She's out of the country for a few weeks, I replied, noticing Leslie turning to smile while still working in the flower bed. Oh well, you can come by yourself then, he said. We can grill some steaks. Bring a 6-pack or some wine if that will make you feel better. Okay, I'll let you know, I replied. You are always welcome, Rick, the younger man said with a knowing smile. Right? I said, walking to my front door. That's the long way around, Rick. You must be tired. Please feel free to go through our yard. I did, but my mind was on my wife and her disappearing act without a word. Still, Leslie's cheerful demeanor and warm smile were a close second in my thoughts. I wondered what it would be like to walk through her yard before heading into our house. After a shower and a cold drink, I looked around our empty home. The TV droned on as I waited for a call from my wife that never came. As night fell and still no message from Marcy arrived, I'd had enough and decided to call her hotel. I had her itinerary pinned and knew her room number. Knowing it would be around 10 p.m. at night there, I called and was patched through, but there was no answer. I'm sorry, senor, the manager said in good but accented English. There appears to be no answer. Who am I speaking to? I asked. Pablo Espinoza, hotel manager at your service, senor. And your name is? Rick Weston. Pablo, Mrs. Weston is my wife. I haven't been able to contact her since she left. Can you confirm that she is checked into your hotel? Do you know what she looks like? Have you seen her? Yes, senor. Senora Weston checked in with all the others from the medical team. I saw her earlier with them in the dining room. They came back from the hospital after surgery. They all looked tired, ate, and then went upstairs. Can you send someone to knock on her room and call me back? Let her know to call me. I will do so, senor, he replied before hanging up. I sensed a guarded tone in his voice, as if he was careful about what to say. Having dealt with people hiding information before, I recognized the signs. With people from other countries, I knew Pablo was not struggling with his English. Looking at my phone, I reviewed my contacts. I was trying to find the contact information for one of Marcy's nurses. Penny. Yes, she and Marcy were close. We had even gone to dinner with her and her husband last August. What was their last name? It started with a W, Penny and Josh Washington. Was Penny on the trip? Just then my phone rang. I checked the caller ID, Pablo Espinoza. Hello, Pablo, I said. Any news of my wife? Oh well, senor. She was not in her room. I don't know where she could be. Maybe she and some of the ladies are together in another room, or they went out. I realized I was getting nowhere with Pablo. He was becoming tight-lipped and uncooperative. Can you do me a favor, Pablo? Yes, senor. What? Is Dr. Trey Cardosa's room number 514? Senor, why do you wish me to call him? I winced, seeing in the itinerary that Marcy's room was 515. Not at this time, Pablo. One more thing. Yes, senor, but I am kind of busy. Humor me, Pablo, and call the room of Mrs. Penny Washington, please. There was a slight hesitation, and then he replied, Si, senor, wait please. The line went to elevator music even in South America. After a while, I heard 3 long rings before someone picked up. Hello, Penny replied. She knew it was me. I had a feeling Pablo told her who was calling. Hi, Penny, I said. Sorry to disturb you this late. Don't worry about it, she said. Why are you calling me? Is Josh okay? Ignoring her question, I took a chance. I'll get to the point. Where is my wife right now? Sure enough, there was a pause before her answer. Why do you ask me that? She replied, her tone tinged with irritation, but I could tell she knew. Don't play games with me, Penny. My wife's room is next to Trey's, and she is not in it. Rick, I think you need to talk to your wife, she replied, but I could have sworn I heard a man's voice in the background. Maybe I should talk to your husband about the man in your room, I countered. I have Josh's number. I wonder what he would think about you having a man in your room away from home. There was silence. Then she covered the phone and spoke again. Okay, Rick, please don't do that. I beg you. Don't call my husband. I don't care how many times you've cheated on your husband, Penny. If you don't tell me what you know about my wife, I will call him and let him know in seconds. Now spill it. Where is my wife? The hotel phones had a transfer option to the phones of other rooms. Penny was hesitant to cooperate, but I knew she wouldn't have time to warn my wife. The phone to room 514 was ringing. Why are you calling us? I heard Trey ask, thinking it was Penny he was talking to. Who the hell was us? But then I understood, the us was my wife and Trey. It's the arrogance that does it, I thought. I hate to spoil your evening, Trey, I said in a cold voice. But this is Rick Weston, and I want to talk to my wife. It took him a few seconds to recover. Then he went into denial mode. They all do that, even the so-called smart ones. Why are you asking me? He asked with a smug tone. Trey, if you value those surgeons' hands or your eyes, I would put Marcy on the phone. Do you understand? Are you threatening? Put my wife on the phone, a hole. I finally lost my temper with him. Some noise sounded like a struggle for the phone, and then I heard my wife's voice, still distant. Give me the phone, Trey. I would say good evening, Rick, but we both know that's not true at this point. What are you doing in his room? I asked, trying to keep myself from losing my temper. Why haven't you called or replied to my texts? And again, what are you doing in his room? What the hell do you think I'm doing, Rick? She replied. I was having a good evening after a stressful day of surgery until you called to play Clint Eastwood. At least she hadn't taken the Duke's name in vain. Just tell me the truth, Marcy. Are you and that guy having an affair? She was silent for a second or two, and then spoke to Trey. Can you give me a few minutes? She said to him before he grumbled something inaudible. Thanks, Trey. After that, neither of us said anything for a few long seconds. I tried to get myself under control, and I bet Marcy did too. She spoke first. Rick, this is not how I thought we would have this conversation tonight, but I guess we have to. I stayed quiet, a trick I had learned from interrogators. Once caught, perpetrators want to confess or spin their defense. Rick, I have been a good wife and mother of our kids and everything I was supposed to be for us. I did all that for years. Well, I will be home in 6 weeks and we can talk about where we go from here, but please, just this once, let me have this. Just once. If you don't mind, if I don't mind, I repeated in near shock. The nerve. I had planned on calling you in a couple of days, she started. After you and Trey hung out? I snapped back. How convenient. After you and the guy got together. Have you talked to them yet? They invited me over for dinner. Why? It's more than dinner, Rick, Marcy said. Les wants you. She wants you to spend time with her. I have talked to her about it, and it's okay if you do. I'm not exactly an angel down here. Yeah, I can tell, Marcy. 24 years of marriage, and this is how you check out? You didn't even have the decency to give me the honey, we have to talk conversation in person. All that would have done is start an argument before I left, you think? I replied snidely. But then I may have asked you to stay and not go. I may have stayed, Rick, she said, her voice breaking. But I wanted this. I need this just once in my life before I get old. I need this to feel alive, just once, to feel like a professional woman on my own. Did I ask you not to go or not to be a nurse? Did you? Oh, I get it. On your own means without a husband, the wife title, and all that baggage, right? Rick, please don't take it like that. Look, when you were away all those years in the army, you were alone and judged by your profession. I want the same. Just once, I want to do what you did. As for Trey, he's just a distraction. For heaven's sake, I did leave less for you, right? Other wives leave behind casseroles. You left me. She chuckled nervously at that. What can I say? I care about my husband. What the hell, Marcy? Rick, she just turned 30. 30? Rick, you're 48. I am giving you a 6-week hall pass with our 30-year-old neighbor. Rick, how many women like Les do you have knocking on our door? Just then, I wondered what was ours or not anymore. So you arranged a woman for me while you were with Dr. Trey? How thoughtful of you, Marcy. Pardon me if I don't say thank you. 6 weeks, Rick. 6 weeks and we'll get together again. I won't ask you what happened, and you don't either. No, wait. There's something you should know. She lowered her voice before continuing. When she spoke again, it sounded like her hand was over her mouth. He's not as big as you, and he's not better, just different. Rick, only different. Do you get it? I get it, I replied. Just then, someone knocked on our back door. Look, Marcy, I have to go. She said nothing. I'll see you when I see you. I love you, Rick. I love you too, Marcy. But right now, I'm not sure that I am in love with you. I hung up on my wife, not wanting to drag out our pointless and painful conversation. Instead, I wanted to open the door to find Leslie. Evening, Rick, she said with a dazzling smile. I noticed she was alone, without her husband. Hello, Les, I replied nervously, my eyes gazing over her because she looked stunning. Les wore minimal makeup, just enough to accent her girl-next-door face. Are you going to let me in? She grinned, raising an eyebrow. Sure, I said, stepping aside so she could pass into the kitchen. I had been staring at her so long that I hadn't noticed she brought a bottle of wine with her, offering it to me. I brought red Moscato. How did you know I like that? Then the light bulb went on over my head. Marcy, my wife had told her what to bring. I was hoping you needed some company. Not sure how good of a company I'll be, Les, but I do want to ask you a thing or two. Sure, Rick, she said. If you do the honors, I'll look for some glasses. I pointed to the glass cabinet and reached for the corkscrew. Where's Vincent? I asked, refraining from calling him Vinny like everyone else in the neighborhood. He's off with his friends playing cards. I see, I replied, but in my mind, I mulled over how her husband had left his young wife alone. How many times had Marcy been alone while I was off playing helicopter pilot? How many times had I left her to fend for herself, alone and vulnerable? So Marcy is off to South America, she said as I poured wine into her glass. Have you heard from her? Funny you should ask. I was just talking to her. I almost said my wife, but stopped myself, feeling strange given our conversation. I mean Marcy, just as you knocked. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. Did I interrupt? No, not really. We said just about all that needed to be said. I could sense her mood shift. Rick, I think we have to talk. We locked gazes, her expression uncertain, and then she nodded. Let's sit, I said, pointing to the living room. How much has she told you? She sat just far enough away from me, her legs crossed. That was going to be my question. Why don't you start? It's only fair since I barged in, she replied. I had hoped Marcy would have talked to you before she left. Did she? No, I had to play phone tag. with her, only to find out my wife is holed up with her doctor boyfriend in South America. Then she told me to talk to you. So let's stop playing this game and tell me what you and she planned before she left. Les nodded and took a good pull from her glass, perhaps needing some liquid courage. I guess some time ago, she and I ran into each other at the mall. We hit it off and had drinks one day in our backyard. I don't know where you and Vincent were that day, but you know us girls and drinks. Before long, I was talking about my marriage and my husband's odd desires. She paused as if trying to decide what to say next. I maintained silence, waiting for her to continue. You see, Rick, my husband likes to share me. Share you? I asked, a bit confused. With other men, yes, she confirmed. I managed to blurt out, that's interesting. And you told Marcy this, I gather? I was tipsy, and Rick, can I be honest here? Sure, be yourself. I find you attractive. Don't take it the wrong way, but I like older men. I was flattered I fit her type, but I questioned why she would tell my wife. Because I wanted her to know and let me have a shot at you. Well, I did ask you to be honest, I replied, and she raised her glass in a toast, licking her lips. How did my wife handle that? I was surprised. She just listened and said nothing. Les continued. Nothing at first, that is. She was a bit shocked at first, I guess. She asked me to explain how it works between Vince and me. As she explained, her eyes drifted off, lost in thought. Well, Marcy never brought it up with me, I said. At first, I asked her not to and to just think about sharing you with me, then to get back with me if she was willing. I scoffed at the nerve of this woman, wondering what it must be like to be married to Vincent, or him married to Les. So Marcy never talked to you about, you and me? She actually dropped that bomb on me over the phone just as you were on your way here tonight. Wow. I took a drink myself, nodding. Rick, you said you found out about her and her doctor friend tonight? I wouldn't call a man who beds another man's wife a gentleman. I agree, she said. My husband shares me, but I never go behind his back. So Vincent knows you are here? Of course. My husband has known I am attracted to you since you moved to our neighborhood. I haven't had a steady lover for a while and have been looking. You have steady boyfriends on the side? I only had one of those before. It lasted 2 years, on and off. But mostly we take trips out of town and meet men Vincent finds online. What does Vincent do while you're with the guy? Vince finds men online who are willing to let him in the room. He likes to watch, but it's also safer that way, I guess. Okay, I replied, shaking my head. How long have you two been doing this? About 4 years, she replied nonchalantly, as if we were discussing gardening. So what happened with Marcy after you asked her? Oh yeah, Marcy, she replied with a smile. She came over a couple of weeks ago and said she was willing, but I would have to do it with you while she was out of the country with her surgery group. Did she say anything to you about what or whom she was going to be doing while she was away? No, but we women can tell. I had a feeling she was doing a conscience trade-off. What do you mean? Well, from what you tell me, she probably knew what she was going to be doing while she was away. Permitting me to have access to you was perhaps something to alleviate her conscience. Les shook her head. Then, I honestly wish she had talked to you beforehand. I don't like this cheating, sneaking around stuff. I didn't respond right away, not because I disagreed, but because I felt guilty about my own actions. Here she was involved in something behind my back, and I couldn't shake the weight of my conscience. I have something for you, Les said, pulling a letter from her purse. Your wife left this for you to read before we did anything. She handed it to me. Go ahead and read it. I'll step out to the restroom if you don't mind. She gestured toward the hallway, asking for directions. To your right. You can't miss it. Thanks. I'll be back in a moment, Les said, smiling as she emptied her glass. The envelope was plain, just like the ones we had in my office down the hall. Written on it was one word, Rick. Taking a deep breath, I opened it and began reading. Dear Rick, I'm a coward, and by the time you read this, you will know that I am breaking our vows with Trey. But before you pass judgment on me, think about your time in Iraq. I have no proof, but I'm almost positive that you and Deidre were involved during your deployment. Remember how I helped you study for your classes when you switched to Army intelligence? Part of that was learning about interrogation and interviewing. People who lie tend to look away when questioned, and you, my dear husband, did just that 3 times when I mentioned her. You're a terrible liar, Rick, but I'm no better. When Trey first put his hands on me, I never told you. Maybe I should have. Perhaps I should have had an affair during all those years that I was home alone and lonely while you were away. Lord knows I was tempted, especially by some of your friends when you were out in the field. Then you went to Iraq and your friend came home before you did. She visited me and had that smug look on her face, saying she took care of you while you were gone. When you returned, I knew exactly what she meant. I know 2 wrongs don't make a right. I also know that there's a chance you and she did nothing. In that case, I would be the first to cheat with Trey, but I suspect you did something, perhaps not with her, but I can't be sure. I'm done being the dutiful wife waiting at home while you're off serving. When Les told me she was interested in you, I spoke with both her and Vincent about it. He admitted they have an open marriage. So here's the situation. I'm going on this trip, and during my absence, I am not your wife, and you are not my husband. You have a 6-week hall pass, and I'm giving myself one too. If you and I still love one another, we can work through this when I return. If not, it will hurt, and I'll mourn what we had, but I can't see us being married without exploring this. Know that I am making this choice freely. I don't love Trey, but I find him attractive. He will just be a memory when I return if you will still have me. What I do with him after you divorce me won't matter. Rick Weston, you are still the love of my life, even after everything. It has been a privilege to be your wife and the mother of your children, but I need a break from us. Les is eager to spend time with you until I return. Vincent would pay to let him watch, but that's your choice. I'll leave you with this thought. If you love someone, set them free. I'll be back in 6 weeks. Love you always and forever, Marcy. P.S. Les was supposed to get tested before she came over for the first time. Make sure she shows you that. Trey and I were both tested before we left. I will get tested for you before my return and won't be with anyone else until we meet. Then I'll show you my test results. Please have one done a week before I return and abstain as well. If we are to make this work, this will be our first sign of trust. I have reserved a room for us at the Ambassador Hotel near the airport. If you still want me, meet me there 2 hours after my flight is due back. I plan on going there alone after my arrival. Please don't come to the airport when my flight lands. I would prefer no scene. Either take me back or walk away. I plan on seeing you at the hotel. I'll be waiting for you in the lobby. When I finished reading it, I noticed Les at the kitchen island filling her glass again. Are you okay? She asked. I will be, I replied. She nodded and came back with the bottle and her filled glass, sitting next to me this time. She refilled my glass and turned to look at me with those bright eyes. So Rick, what do we do right now? We're not going to do anything, I told Les firmly. You and Marcy have been planning this little scheme for 2 weeks, and I'm just now hearing about it tonight. From what you're telling me, I get the impression she's had something going on for some time before that. Am I right? I guess so, she said, looking down. It was obvious she wasn't used to someone not instantly falling for her charms, of which she had many. If I were a single man, I might have been tempted, but I didn't like being played, especially not by someone I had loved for most of my adult life. I told her as much. You said yourself this was something she wanted to do to ease her own guilty conscience, I said. Or it could be something else. It's clear this was something the two of you planned behind my back. She even told you what wine to get me. The problem is, I don't appreciate being used like that. I guess I can understand how you might feel, she said quietly. So I guess this means nothing is going to happen between us? Not tonight. Basically, it means I have a lot to think about and a lot to consider before I do something drastic, I said. I wanted her to think there was a chance that something might happen. That way, she would be more open to answering my questions. Right now, though, I needed information. There were too many things about this whole situation that didn't sit right with me. There's a saying that military people are very familiar with, know your enemy. I hated thinking of Marcy as the enemy, but in my mind, she had drawn first blood, and I was determined to win by any means necessary. Can we count on you joining us for dinner in a day or two? I don't know, Rick, I replied. Right now, I'm not really in the mood for company. I have a lot to sort out. We'll see. Okay, she said quietly. Just know that I'll be available for you anytime. I appreciate that, Les, I said. Good night, and thanks for the wine. Standing up, she took that as her cue to leave, which she did. I admired her as she walked away. Couldn't help it. After she left, I picked up Marcy's letter and read through it again. It's amazing what you can see if you take the time to analyze a letter like this. For starters, I couldn't help but notice the bitterness when she wrote about Deidre, the CIA operative I worked with in Iraq. Marcy even admitted she wasn't 100% certain that Deidre and I had been involved, but she still referred to her in a derogatory way. Just a few paragraphs later, she was all but demanding I be with Les. How could she go from one extreme to the other in such a short space? That didn't make much sense to me. It's true that Deidre and I had shared a moment in Iraq, but it happened right after we survived an ambush, and we never had any sort of relationship beyond that. We certainly didn't spend weeks plotting it like Marcy obviously did with Trey and Les. I remembered having mixed feelings about it at the time. On one hand, I felt guilty about what had happened, but on the other hand, I already suspected Marcy was being unfaithful, so I felt justified. I also wondered why Marcy didn't want me to meet her at the airport when she came back. I could understand her being concerned that I might react violently, but I had never given her any indication of that in the past. Why would she ask that I meet her in the lobby of the Ambassador Hotel? Why not come straight home? Then it hit me. Was she really that devious? The fact that she had plotted this right under my nose answered that question. But what the hell was really going on here? I turned and looked in the front room, searching for anything that didn't belong, anything that might be a surveillance device like a camera or a microphone. I looked at the smoke alarm. Could there be a hidden camera installed there? I decided to make a couple of calls, but didn't want to make them inside just in case I was being monitored. I grabbed Marcy's itinerary, went out the front door, and sat in the swinging chair I had installed there some time back. Marcy knows that I'm a consultant, but what she doesn't know is that I'm actually the senior security consultant for Acme Global, a huge corporation with interests and offices around the world. It's my job to ensure those offices remain safe and secure, which means I have contacts I can reach out to if I need something done. My first call was to Alan Williams, the top tech specialist in my department. He was more than just good, he was the best in his business. Williams, he said when he answered the call. Alan, this is Rick, I said. How's it going? Going pretty good, boss, he replied. But I get the feeling you didn't call me just to ask how I was doing. No, I didn't, Alan. I could use your expertise. I gave him the Reader's Digest version of what had happened and expressed my concerns. I'm sorry to hear that about you and Marcy, Rick. I understand your concern. Tell you what, Give me about 45 minutes to get some gear together, and I'll be right over. Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. We ended the call, and I scrolled through my contacts to find the second number. After I found it, I placed the call. Hola, Señor Rick, said the jovial male voice on the other end. Ernesto, how are things with you, my friend? I asked. Ernesto was my go-to man in that area of South America, based at our office in Bogota, the same city where Marcy and her associates were currently based. Oh, doing well here, boss, he said. I wasn't expecting to hear from you today. What can I do for you? I gave him the same rundown I had given Alan. Damn, he said when I finished. I am truly sorry to hear that, my friend. I take it you need eyes and ears on the ground here. Yes, Nesto, I said, providing the name of the hotel where Marcy was staying, along with the room numbers of her companions. I also told him about Pablo, the hotel manager whom I had spoken to before. Can you do that?
Sí, my friend.
I can get you anything you need, he replied. I take it you want audio, video, and pictures? Yes, the works. And I'd like a daily recap, if that's all right. Let me know if you need any walking around money, and I'll wire down what you need. I'll also send you their itinerary for the next few weeks. Sounds good, he said. You want anything special done with him? I knew Ernesto had connections in both high and low places, but I wasn't quite ready to go there just yet. Not yet. Right now, I need information. We have 6 weeks. Okay, you're the boss, he said. Let me get started right away. Thanks, Ernesto. I really appreciate it. I'll make it worth your while, I said, and added, give my best to your family. Ernesto was married with 5 children, and he loved them all dearly. I know you will, and thank you. I'll pass that on to my wife and the kids. After we ended the call, I scanned Marcy's itinerary, converted it to PDF on my phone, and emailed it to Ernesto. After confirming that he received the file, I put my phone away. Shortly afterward, Alan pulled into my driveway. He got out of the car and walked up, carrying a large case I knew was full of electronic gear. We shook hands on the porch and I ushered him inside. As I watched, he pulled some gear out of the case and began his search. In 30 minutes, he discovered miniature wireless cameras in several rooms of the house, mostly installed in the smoke detectors. All of them appeared to be sound or motion activated. There were cameras in almost every room of the house except for the bathrooms. We also found a few tiny microphones, and Alan discovered that our landline had also been bugged. These units don't have much range, Alan said. There's got to be a receiver around here somewhere, maybe in the garage or the attic. We searched the garage but found nothing. I escorted him to the attic after grabbing a flashlight, and we looked around. Sure enough, there was a box in one corner of the attic with a laptop attached to it. When we moved the laptop, the screensaver came up. It was locked, and I had no idea what the password might be. Alan checked it out carefully. It looks like this thing saves whatever audio and video the cameras and microphones gather, then uploads everything to the cloud later using wireless. Can you tell who this stuff belongs to? I asked. Alan looked at the box and found a sticker that read Property of Smith Investigations, 1277 West Main Street, Suite A. There was also a phone number on the sticker. How convenient, I thought to myself. So what do you want me to do with all this? Alan asked. Want me to disable everything? I thought about it for a bit before answering. My initial reaction was to have him get rid of it all, but I had another idea. Disable the camera and microphone they put in my office. Leave the rest up. If they want video, I'll give them video. It'll be the most boring video they can imagine. Alan chuckled at that. I also had some ideas about using this gear to mess with Marcy's head a bit. Okay, he said. We left the attic and went back downstairs. Alan got rid of the camera and microphone in my office, then looked at the computer Marcy and I shared that sat on the desk. "You want me to check that out as well?" he asked. "Yeah, let's cover all the bases." I booted the computer up and watched as Alan did his magic. Sure enough, Marcy had installed a keylogger program on it the night before she left. Since I hadn't used it, there wouldn't be anything for her to capture. After performing a thorough scan, he also found some surveillance software that either she or her private investigator had installed. He cleaned it all up and ran another scan. "Looks clean to me now," he said. "Why do you think she would go to all this trouble?" I asked Alan. "Well, if I were to guess, I'd say she intends to set you up for something," he said, confirming what I had already suspected. "Maybe she's planning to divorce you and is getting ready to take everything you have." "I hate to say it, Alan, but I think you're right," I said. "Mind if I make a suggestion?" he asked as he put his gear away. "Not at all. If she had an investigator come in to install all this stuff, chances are he still has a key to your house," Alan said. "After all, he'd have to come back at some point to collect his stuff. If I were you, I'd have the locks changed immediately, and I'd change the code on your security system." "That's a good idea. I'll call a locksmith right away. Thanks for coming out, Alan. I really appreciate all your help." After we said our goodbyes, I pulled my phone out and looked up a locksmith. I found one and called. It would cost me an extra $50, but it was worth it to me. The last thing I wanted was some private investigator coming into my house. As I waited for the locksmith, I sat down at the computer Marcy and I shared. I fired it up and logged in as Marcy. I wanted to find out what she had been up to lately, and I figured this was as good a place to start as any. I pulled up her browser and opened her web email client. Came right up without even asking for a password. Apparently, her credentials had already been cached, and she hadn't changed it the way I suggested. This was one time I was actually glad she didn't follow my advice. Normally, I didn't snoop on her computer usage, choosing not to invade her privacy, but this was different. In my view, she had declared war, and I was determined to win. I looked through her emails. Most of it was spam, but there were a number of emails between her and Trey, the doctor she was with. Rather than read them all at once, I performed a search and was presented with several email threads between them that went back more than a year. Interesting, I thought. I selected them, then exported and saved them to a thumb drive so I could go through them later. There were several emails between her and the kids, small talk mostly and nothing of note. By then, the locksmith arrived, and I showed him the doors I needed new locks on. I turned him loose on that and went back to the computer. Going through the threads between Marcy and her doctor, I found one with the subject, lawyer. Curious, I opened it up. The first email was from her, telling Trey that she had just spoken with her lawyer, one Allison Hargraves, and had read the proposed divorce settlement and postnuptial agreement. She argued against doing it but wrote, "I really don't care at this point. I'm going through with this no matter what." "You're actually going to divorce Rick?" he wrote back. "I thought you loved him. You said you intended to spend the rest of your life with him. What's going on?" "I do love him," she answered, "and I intend to spend the rest of my life with him, but things are going to be different from now on. He's had 30 years to live his life his way, and now it's my turn to do the same on my terms." "What are you planning?" he asked. "I've got a letter I'm going to have Leslie give him," she said. "I told him in the letter that he needs to meet me in the lobby of the Ambassador when we get back. That's where I'll have him served with the papers. He'll be so distraught he'll do anything to avoid divorce. I'll take him to my room and hand him the postnuptial. He'll have a choice. Either agree to my terms or face ruin in a divorce." "Damn," Trey said. "You're cold. Remind me to never get on your bad side." "So what are you using for grounds?" he asked. Adultery, and I'll have him dead to rights, complete with video, she said. I've already talked to Leslie. She's had a crush on him for a long time. It was really pretty easy to do. I told Rick in the letter that I would give him a free pass to see her for the 6 weeks we're gone. What he doesn't know is that I've had the house wired for audio and video, and I've got a private investigator following his every move. His goose is cooked, he just doesn't know it yet. On top of that, my lawyer says I can sue Leslie for alienation of affection if I want to. So not only will I get half of Rick's military retirement, but I'll get the house, half of all our assets, and I can ruin Leslie and her husband financially. So it'll be in his best interest to go along with what I want. Damn, do you think he'll actually go for that? He won't have a choice, she said. I already told him in the letter he can either take me back or walk away. I doubt he'll walk away. What if he does? Trey asked. That'll be his loss, she said. You said he's been an unknowing fool, Trey wrote back. How long have you been seeing him? Years. It started when he was in Korea for a year. I moved the kids back home and started at the hospital. That was back when they were doing renovations. I had to park at the Red Roof Inn like many others, and I discovered I could go in an hour or two ahead of my schedule, meet up with another nurse, and still have enough time to prepare for work. Of course, I had to stop after he came home. Finally, I thought, after all these years, I know the truth, and he never suspected. Trey asked, well, we did get together in Hawaii in the middle of the year, and I think he suspected something was going on, she replied. Caused quite a stir, let me tell you, but I was able to smooth things over. That's why I know I can do it this time as well. The only difference is that he'll know what I've been up to. You're taking quite a risk, Trey said, which was the first thing I would ever agree with him on. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, she said. I just hope you know what you're doing. Don't worry, she answered. I've got it all under control. That was the final email in the thread. Thank goodness I wasn't sure how much more of that I could take. I printed out the email thread and put it in a folder. By then, the locksmith had finished his work and handed me 3 new sets of keys. I paid him for his work and gave him an extra $50 for coming out after hours. After he left, I decided to do the same. I shut the computer down, then went upstairs to change. From there, I went out for a burger and a beer, stopping at a convenience store for some cigars. I hadn't smoked since I was in the army, and I felt like I needed something to keep me calm. I couldn't help but notice a dark SUV following me. Whoever it was had been on my tail since I left the cul-de-sac. I didn't recognize the driver's face, but I noted the license plate and made a mental note to check it out later. I figured it was the investigator Marcy hired. I tried to shake him off, but he managed to stay behind me. When I pulled into Yan's Bar and Grill, he pulled in as well. I'd had enough of this charade. I got out of my car and walked straight to the SUV. The man's face went pale when I yanked his door open. Who the hell are you and why are you following me? I demanded. I don't know what you're talking about. The smaller man stammered, his eyes wide with fear. You've been on my tail ever since I left my house. Are you the investigator my wife hired to follow me? I don't know what you're talking about, he said nervously, avoiding my gaze. You're lying? I told him, leaning closer. Right now, I'm fed up with all the deception, so maybe I ought to teach you a lesson right here. What do you say? Look, I don't know what you're talking about, mister. I'll leave. Just don't hit me, please. I never want to see you on my street or anywhere near me again. Got it? Okay, he said, shrinking back in his seat. I'm sorry. I slammed the door shut and watched as he started his SUV and drove off. After I was convinced he was gone, I went inside and ordered a burger and a beer. Woman trouble? The bartender asked when I placed my order. Was it that obvious? I replied with a sigh. Yeah, you could say that, he said, sliding my beer across the counter. You know what they say, can't live with them, can't shoot him. His comment made me chuckle despite myself. I finished my burger, which was quite good, and my beer, which hit the spot, then headed home. When I got there, I grabbed another beer from the fridge, then went out back to enjoy a cigar and think. As I enjoyed my cigar, a plan began to form in my mind. I pulled out my phone and looked up a few things on Google, which made me smile. I consulted the calendar and picked the date. I would have to make a couple of calls to get it all rolling, but I didn't see any reason why it shouldn't come together. Just then, I got a text message from Ernesto. All set. First recap in the morning. If possible, please send $250. The message was followed by a PayPal address. I pulled up PayPal and sent the cash with a note. Thanks. We'll call tomorrow. I have an idea. I got a response almost immediately. Talk to you then. I finished my beer and cigar and went inside. I trudged up the stairs to what used to be the bedroom I shared with Marcy. Out of curiosity, I went to her nightstand and opened the drawer. There, close to the front, were her rings. I looked at the smoke detector where I knew a camera had been installed, then pulled my ring off and dropped it in the drawer with hers. I looked back at the camera and extended a middle finger, thinking to myself, eat that. The next morning, I got ready for work. Before I left, I checked Marcy's email. Sure enough, there was a new message with the subject, been made. I opened it up and smiled as I read the note. I don't know how, but your husband found the surveillance equipment. Attached here are the videos we got last night. He also spotted our investigator, awaiting instructions. The short message said it all. I made sure it was marked as read, then closed out the mail client. I left for work and somehow managed to get through the day. When I got home, I checked my email and found the attachments Ernesto sent from the previous night's surveillance. I wasn't really impressed by what I saw. Marcy was right. Trey was considerably smaller than me, but he seemed to make up for it with enthusiasm. I listened to their conversation afterward. What do you think your husband's doing right now? Trey asked, his voice smug. He's probably out with that woman from next door, Marcy replied. I'll have video of it tomorrow morning. Then I'll send it to my attorney. Enough about him. Let's focus on us, Trey said, pulling her close. I ended the video, closed the office door, and then grabbed my phone to call Ernesto. Senior Rick, he answered when he picked up. Much as the walking around money is appreciated, it really helped. Did you see what I sent this morning? I asked. I did, Ernesto. Thanks. Listen, I have an idea for a plan, and I want to run it by you to see what you think. Sure, he said, listening quietly as I laid out my thoughts. Is that something you can help set up? I asked when I finished. I believe so, Senior Rick, he replied. It would take a bit more walking around money, though. When do you want to do this? In 10 days, I said firmly. 10 days? It can be done, he assured me. Let me ask a couple of people and I'll get back to you. Just one thing, why in 10 days? Why not sooner? That'll be our 25th wedding anniversary, I explained. I want to make sure she never forgets it. You are one mean hombre, you know that, Senior Rick? He said, laughing. I do my best, Ernesto. Get back to me as soon as you can and let me know what you need. Please try to keep it reasonable. I will, Senior Rick. Talk to you soon. We ended the call and I went back through my contact list. There was one more person I needed to reach out to, but I didn't know if she would be available or willing to help. I found her number, personal cell, when we were in Iraq together. I took a deep breath and dialed. To my amazement, she picked up on the second ring. Deidre, she said when she answered. Deidre, this is Rick Weston. Rick? Oh my God. It's been forever, she exclaimed. How are you doing? Could be better, I told her. Listen, you got a few minutes? Of course. I was just getting ready to sit down for dinner. I can call back if I'm interrupting something. No, you're not interrupting anything. These days it's just me and the cat. I'm sorry to hear that. It's all good, she said. So what's up with you? I shared a bit more than the Reader's Digest version of my story. Oh my God! Do you have proof of all this? She asked, her voice rising with disbelief. Yes. Emails, pictures, videos, you name it, I replied. She mentioned that someone had talked to her and said something about us taking care of each other. Let me read you what she wrote, I said, pulling out Marcy's letter. She came to visit me and, with a smug look, told me that she took care of you over there and then walked off before I could ask what she meant. But when you came back, I knew precisely what she meant. I read that part where Deidre said she specifically told Marcy that we were a team, that we looked out for each other. Look, I shouldn't have done what I did with you, and I'm sorry if I compromised you in any way. That's on me, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. That was the only time I ever crossed that line, but none of that excuses this, in my opinion, I said, my voice tight with emotion. Rick, you have nothing to apologize for, Deidre replied firmly. We were both pretty rattled after that ambush, and frankly, I'm not sorry. It's not like we plotted and schemed behind her back. Granted, it was a bit unprofessional, and it would have cost us both if we had been caught, but I don't regret it one bit. So, what are you going to do? I told her my plan and waited for a response. Wow, she said after a few moments. I like it. I really like it. I have a contact in Colombia who's handling one part, but I don't have the necessary access for the other. I think I may be able to help you out there, she said confidently. When do you want this done? In 10 days. That'll be our 25th anniversary. Oh, you're so evil, she said with a laugh. Consider it done. It'll be my anniversary present to you. Couldn't help but laugh at that. After a few moments, she spoke again. You know, I've thought a lot about you since Iraq. I've thought a lot about you too. We were a great team over there, weren't we? Yes, we were, she answered softly. You know, I haven't connected with anyone like that since then, she added sadly. I'm sorry to hear that. That's life, I guess. Yeah, I guess so, I told her. What are your plans? I've been thinking a lot about retiring lately. I'm too old to be in the field, so they have me doing desk work. Well, if you do retire, I know a company that would hire you in a heartbeat. Would I get to work with a certain retired Army colonel? She asked, hope evident in her voice. I can guarantee that. Well, I guess there is something worth living for then. Rick, do you think that maybe we could reconnect? She asked hesitantly. I could remember a time when Marcy and I had that kind of connection, but that was many years ago. Something like that, she said. Unless, of course, you plan to take Marcy back. You're not going to, are you? Not after this. Marcy made her bed. Now she gets to lie in it. And I'll be damned if I let her ride off into the sunset with her doctor friend. Good, because I'd really like to finish what we started in Iraq, she said, her voice dropping to a sultry tone. I would like that as well, I replied. But I have a couple of things to do first. I understand. Just do me a favor, she said. What's that? I asked. Don't make me wait too long. Please. I won't, I assured her. Just so you know, if this works out, it'll take some time for my divorce to go through. I understand, Rick. Just know that I'm here for you if you need someone to talk to. Call me. Okay. I will, I said. It's great hearing your voice again. It's great hearing yours as well, she responded warmly. Well, I'd better get going. My pasta salad is getting soggy, I said, feeling a bit hungry myself. I'll be in touch, Deidre. I promise. You'd better, she replied playfully. Talk to you soon. We ended the call and I felt better than I had in a long time. I suppose Marcy was right. Deidre was smitten with me, and to be honest, I felt closer to her than I had with Marcy in a very long time. I closed my eyes, recalling our memories, when I was brought back to reality by the sound of knocking. Damn it, I said to myself as I headed to the front room, realizing the knocking was at the back door. I opened it to find Leslie with a plate covered in aluminum foil. I thought you might be a bit hungry, so I put together a plate for you, she said with a warm smile. I hope you like lasagna. Mind if I bring it in? Not at all. I love lasagna. Just put it on the counter, please. She smiled as she placed the plate down. I hope you like it. Unless, of course, you see something else you'd like to taste. I had to admit I was tempted, but after what I had learned and my conversation with Deidre, I decided against it. Besides, I felt there was a real chance with Deidre, and I wasn't about to risk that for a moment of temptation with Leslie. As tempting as that sounds, I'm afraid I'll have to take a rain check, I said. Her expression changed suddenly, and she stood up straight. What's the matter? She asked. Don't you find me attractive? Marcy gave you a hall pass after all. I find you very attractive, and I'm sure she'd agree. In fact, she's got a camera right up there, I added, pointing to the smoke detector. I'm sure she thinks you're attractive as well. Why don't you give her a wave and tell her hello? Shocked, she turned around and looked at the smoke detector. What? Are you sure about that? Oh yes. She had cameras put into almost every room of the house and has a private investigator following me. Maybe you as well. Didn't you know? She shook her head. No, I didn't. Step into my office for a bit, Leslie, I said. I have something to show you. She followed me into my home office where I handed her a printout of the email chain between Marcy and Trey. Her eyes widened as she read it. When she finished, she handed the printout back. Oh my God. I had no idea, Rick. Honestly, I didn't. I know she used you and played you for a fool right along with me. What are you going to do? She asked. I've got something in the works. Yes, I'll be filing for divorce, and I won't be seeing anyone until that divorce is final. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, I understand, Rick, she said quietly. Can we still be friends? I don't see why not, I replied. But we can't take it beyond that. Okay, Rick, I'm sorry about everything. I hope you enjoy the lasagna. I'm sure I will, Leslie. Thank you. I escorted her to the back door and watched as she left. I had to admit she looked good in those shorts, but there was no way I was going to risk everything. After she left the yard, I went upstairs and changed into my running gear, figuring the lasagna, which was still warm, would be good when I got back. After my run, I took a shower and changed, then went down and gobbled up the lasagna Leslie had left. It was full of cheese, mushrooms, and meat, just the way I liked it, and it hit the spot. I washed the plate, grabbed a beer, and went into my home office, pausing only to give a playful gesture toward the camera in the front room. The first thing I did was check Marcy's email. I saw she had responded to the investigator telling him to back off for now. There were no other emails either to or from her. Next, I looked at her finances. We maintained 3 checking accounts, one for each of us and a household account for bills. Most of what we made went into the household account, but we each kept 10% for ourselves. We started doing that shortly after we got married, agreeing to put each other on our personal signature cards in case of emergency, so I had no problem accessing her account. I noticed she had saved quite a bit over the years, but had also paid a hefty retainer to Allison Hargraves, attorney at law, and had made considerable payments to Smith Investigations. There were also a few charges at Victoria's Secret, no doubt for her lover, since I had never seen her wear anything from there. From there, I did a bit of research on Allison Hargraves. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't recall from where. A quick Google search revealed that in addition to being a family law attorney, she was an author. A few years back, she sparked some controversy with a book promoting the idea of a female-led marriage. I had never read the book but decided to give it a look. I also found that she had been interviewed by the New York Times, where she admitted that while she consults with anyone who calls on her, she only takes on women as clients and generally tries to recruit them into what she called the hot wife lifestyle. I decided to look into that a bit before scheduling an appointment. From there, I went to Amazon and ordered the cheapest Kindle version of her book. I downloaded it to my Kindle and went to the back patio with a beer and a cigar. After sorting through the psychoanalysis, it was quite clear to me that Hargraves held a strong bias against men and seemed to take pleasure in putting them in marital situations that felt like emotional torment. This was the attorney Marcy had chosen, and it spoke volumes to me. I was interrupted by a text from Ernesto informing me that he could set up what I wanted for $11,000. He provided a bank account number for me to wire the funds to and assured me he could handle everything discreetly. I had a better idea, though. I went into the office, accessed Marcy's account, and made the transfer to the bank Ernesto specified. She still had plenty of money left, and I doubted she would even notice. If anything was ever traced, it would appear as if the money had come from her account. I replied to Ernesto that the transfer was complete, then finished my cigar and went inside to unwind with some television before bed. The next few days flew by quickly. I followed the same routine, checking in with Ernesto, reviewing Marcy's email, working, running, showering, eating, and unwinding with a beer and a cigar before bed. I no longer felt the need to communicate with Marcy and found I actually enjoyed the silence. My previous feelings for her had faded significantly. I only saw Leslie once after I showed her the email chain I had printed out, which was the next day when I returned her plate. Vince invited me to stay for dinner, but I declined, saying I had things to do. I was relieved that Leslie stayed away. I didn't need any distractions. The only thing that kept me going was my periodic phone calls with Deidre. I had gotten into the habit of calling her every couple of days just to say hello. We talked about many things: our lives, hopes, dreams, and even our pets. The more I spoke with her, the closer I felt to her, and I began to realize I was developing feelings for her. I managed to arrange an appointment to see Allison Hargraves. When I arrived, her receptionist ushered me in and offered me a cup of coffee, which I gladly accepted. I shook Allison's hand and introduced myself. She seemed to be about my age, well-dressed, and in good shape. I noticed the ring on her finger and wondered about her life at home. "So, I understand you're looking into getting a divorce," she said. "I am," I replied. "Your name is Weston, is that right?" she asked. "Yes, it is," I confirmed. She frowned slightly as she looked at something on her computer and then back at me. "May I ask your wife's name?" she inquired. "Marcy," I replied. "That's short for Mara." "Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Weston, but I'm afraid I can't represent you," she said. "It would present a conflict of interest. You see, I'm already representing your wife." "Yes, I know. I also know you only represent women, which seems a bit biased," I remarked. She regarded me intently. "If you already know that, why did you ask to see me?" "I'm a retired Army intelligence officer," I said. "I like to know as much as I can about my adversaries." "Adversaries?" she echoed. "Is that how you see me?" "Pretty much, yes. The same goes for both you and Marcy, actually. I read your book and the interview you did for the New York Times. I know you like to recruit your clients into your lifestyle. Is that what you did with my wife?" "Mr. Weston, that's privileged information," she said firmly. Did you know Marcy was going to Colombia for 6 weeks? And do you know what she planned to do during that time? Again, Mr. Weston, that's privileged information, and I'm not at liberty to disclose that, she replied. I nodded, noting her body language. I see you're married, I said, glancing at her ring. I found your chapter on controlling husbands interesting. Tell me, do you treat your husband the way you suggest in that chapter? Do you manipulate him? That is none of your concern, Mr. Weston, and I think this interview is over. You know the way out, she said coldly. I smiled as I nodded. I'd like to say it's been a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Hargraves, but that would be a lie. I'm sure we'll see each other again. Good day. I went toward the door and stopped long enough to face her one last time. By the way, I personally found your book to be quite appalling. Have a good day. I walked out of her office before she had a chance to respond. The receptionist looked at me with a smile as I left, and I wondered if she had heard what transpired. Finally, the day of our 25th anniversary came. I had plenty of comp time on the books, so I took the day off. I knew it would be a busy day, and I wanted to be home to keep up with the developments. I received a text from Deidre early that morning telling me she was able to do what I asked. I nervously awaited word from Ernesto. About mid-morning, I got a text from him. Check your email. After booting up my computer, I opened my email client and saw that he had sent a video. It looked as if the video had been taken at a point overlooking a dirt road where a hastily constructed checkpoint had been set up. I could see 3 SUVs coming down the road toward the checkpoint. As the vehicles approached, armed military personnel stopped them, barking orders to the occupants before opening the doors. As I watched, the soldiers began opening boxes and rummaging through what was inside. Suddenly, one of them hollered out, and several more armed soldiers came running. They looked in the boxes and then started carrying them to a military vehicle parked nearby. One of the soldiers pointed his rifle at the driver's side door and barked an order. The door opened, and I saw Trey stepping out with his hands in the air. Marcy came around from the passenger side, walking between 2 armed soldiers. They were roughly handcuffed and then placed in the back of a military vehicle. A tow truck arrived, connecting to the SUV they were in and hauling it away. The soldiers inspected the other 2 vehicles before finally waving them on. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I pulled up my phone and called Ernesto. Hola, Ernesto said when he answered. I take it you've seen the video? I asked. I have, Ernesto. What the hell happened? Well, we got the stuff just as you asked. Only a couple grams, just enough to get her deported. Unfortunately, my men weren't able to plant it on her. Turns out her lover, Dr. Trey, has been smuggling fairly large quantities of cocaine and heroin for a while. There were already several kilos in the vehicle and boxes marked for medicine. My men saw the stuff being packed and loaded, so they backed off. They didn't want to get mixed up with any cartel business, and I don't blame them. Neither do I. So where are Marcy and Trey now? Was she involved in this? They're both being held in jail, Ernesto said. It looks like she may have known about it, but I'm not sure to what extent. They have 48 hours to turn this over to a judge, and it could take up to 90 days for them to investigate and decide whether or not to prosecute. From what we saw, though, I don't think it'll take them that long. So what happens to them? Do you know if the consulate has been made aware of this? I'm sure the consulate in Bogota is aware of it by now, Ernesto said. This happened fairly early this morning. Keep an eye on things for me, Ernesto. I will, boss. I'm sorry this happened. I know it's not quite what you were expecting. Don't be sorry. It's not quite what I had in mind, but if she's involved in trafficking drugs with Trey, she deserves whatever she gets. We ended the call, and I immediately called Deidre to let her know what happened. She didn't sound all that surprised. Do you have a line on what's going on down there? I asked. That's not my particular area of concern, but I know the station chief down there, and I can make a call to see what I can find out. Please do, I said. I'll call you as soon as I hear something. While I waited to hear back from her, I gathered a trash bag and went through the house, removing all the cameras and microphones Marcy's PI had installed. I also went into the attic and grabbed the receiver and laptop, shoving it all in the bag without caring if anything broke, then set it in the driveway in front of the garage. I called Smith Investigations. Smith Investigations, a female voice said. I'd like to speak with the head there, please, I said. Okay, sir. One moment, please, she stammered. A few seconds later, I heard the man I had encountered earlier at Yan's. James Smith. What can I do for you? He asked. This is Rick Weston. You remember me? We met in the parking lot at Yan's the other day. Your client is sitting in a Colombian jail on charges of drug trafficking. I've pulled all of your equipment out of my house. It's in a garbage bag in my driveway. If it's still there tomorrow morning, I'm tossing it out with the rest of the garbage. Got it, he said. I ended the call, not caring what he had to say. The stuff was gone the next morning when I went to work. I assumed Smith picked it up, but I really didn't care if someone had come along and stolen it. A few moments after I got off the phone with Smith, my phone rang. It was Deidre. I just got off the phone with the station chief in Bogota, she said. What did you learn? The feds in Colombia have been watching Trey ever since he got to Bogota. It turns out he's a distant relative of the guy who runs one of the most notorious drug cartels down there. If Marcy is involved with him, then she's facing a long stretch in prison. The judge assigned to the case is known for being particularly tough on foreigners involved in drug trafficking. How much time is she looking at? I asked. At least 10 years. Well, I'd say if she couldn't do the time, she shouldn't have done the crime. How much were they carrying? According to my source, at least 20 pounds of drugs, she said. Damn. You can expect a visit from the State Department pretty soon, Deidre replied. Let me know how it goes. I figured as much. I'll call you when I hear something. So what are you going to do now? She asked. Get a divorce. There's no way I'm staying married to someone who's gotten involved in this. Good, she replied. After we ended the call, I dialed the hotel in Bogota where they were staying. Pablo answered the phone. Good morning, Pablo, I said. This is Rick Weston. Can you please put me through to Penny Washington's room? Yes, Senor Weston. I will be happy to do that for you. Penny picked up the phone after the first ring. Hello? She said nervously. Penny, this is Rick Weston. I've been trying to get in touch with my wife. Today's our anniversary, and I wanted to say hello. Any idea where she is? Is she out celebrating with Trey or something? No, Rick. She's not out celebrating, Penny said, sounding like she was about to start crying. What's the matter? Oh, Rick, it was horrible. We were heading out to a village and we got stopped at a checkpoint. Marcy and Trey were arrested. The soldiers said they were transporting drugs. They questioned us at gunpoint, and I thought they were going to kill us. They took Marcy and Trey away and escorted us back to the hotel. They kept asking us if we had any drugs, but we didn't know what they were talking about. They finally told us to stay at the hotel and not go anywhere. We're pretty much on house arrest here. I see, I told her. Sounds like you had a bit of excitement. So what's going to happen now? I don't know. The Doctors Without Borders people told us to stay put for now. They said we may have to stay here for as long as 3 months. I'm sure they just want to do a thorough investigation. Penny, have you told Josh yet? No, I haven't. Have you talked to him since the last time we spoke? No, Penny. I've had enough on my plate since you guys left for your little South American adventure, but I do plan on speaking with him soon. Please, you can't tell him what's been going on, she pleaded. It'll destroy him. Not as much as your dishonesty will destroy him, I said firmly. Don't you think your husband deserves to know what kind of woman he's married to? I'm begging you, please don't, she begged, her voice cracking. Have a good day, Penny, I said before ending the call. What she didn't know was that I already had video evidence of her with her doctor companion. I looked through my contacts and found Josh's cell number. I decided to give him a call. Josh, he said when he answered. Josh, this is Rick Weston. Do you have a couple of minutes? Yeah, sure, Rick. What's going on? I gave him a brief version of what had been happening in Colombia, including the drug arrest, and offered to email him video evidence of Penny's activities. Yeah, email it to me, he said. I had a feeling something was going on. Penny just didn't seem to be herself the last few times I talked to her. I'm sorry, Josh, I said. I just didn't feel it was right to keep it from you, and I've had a lot to deal with myself. No problem, Rick. I understand. I'm sure it hasn't been easy for you. So what are you going to do? I asked. I can't see getting past this, he said. It's not the first time she's been unfaithful, but by God, it's going to be the last. Thanks for letting me know. We ended the call, and I emailed him several videos that had been captured in Penny's room. My next call was to a divorce lawyer. I set up an appointment to see her in 3 days. A couple of days later, I was called up to see my immediate supervisor, Bill Hastings. When I got to his office, I noticed a tall man in a dark suit. He stood as I walked in. Rick, this is Thomas Herman, Bill said. He's with the State Department. Tom held out his hand, and I shook it. Tom, this is Rick Weston. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Weston. The pleasure is all mine, I said. Call me Rick. What can I do for the State Department? Well, Rick, your wife Marcy has been taken into custody by federal authorities in Colombia. She's been charged with drug trafficking. Drug trafficking? I asked, feigning surprise. Are you sure about that? She's supposed to be down there with a group from Doctors Without Borders. I find it hard to believe she'd be involved with anything like that. Of course, I lied. I felt it better to put on a good face and play the part of the grieving husband. Is there anything you can do to help her out? I mean, she is a U.S. citizen. I'm afraid not, Rick. You see, Americans in Colombia are subject to the laws there. If they break the law, they're subject to arrest by local authorities. We can't just go in and get them out of prison. We can keep an eye on her, arrange for visits, do welfare checks, that sort of thing, but we're not allowed to interfere with judicial actions down there. I see, I said. And there's another problem. What's that? I asked. Even if she were set free today, she wouldn't be able to fly home, he said. It seems she's already been placed on a no-fly list. Really? I asked. Yes, it could be just an administrative error. It happens sometimes, but it takes quite a bit to get someone off that list. So what is she facing? I asked. Well, the drug laws in Colombia are some of the toughest in the Western Hemisphere. If all she had were a few grams for personal use, chances are they would have handled it as an administrative matter and simply given her a fine and deported her. But she was found with a considerable amount of drugs, and they believe that was just the tip of the iceberg. She could be facing up to 12 years in prison. 12 years? I asked, trying to sound shocked. Yes, he replied. After about 7 or 8 years, the judge can put her on what's known as conditional liberty, but she won't be allowed to leave the country, and she won't be able to get a legal, paying job in Colombia since she's a foreigner. So chances are she'll be stuck in prison for the duration of her sentence. Of course, there are things that can be done to help, but with her being on the no-fly list, she's pretty much stuck there. She will need some money for expenses, legal fees, and so on, he added, pulling a pamphlet out of his briefcase. This pamphlet will help explain how to do that. Make sure you follow the directions. If you don't, it could delay her getting the funds. If you wish, I can help arrange for visitation. Is that something you'd be interested in? Yeah, I have a few things to do first. Can I call you in a couple of days? Of course, he said, pulling a business card out of his pocket. That's my direct line. Just call any time during normal business hours. I took the card and slipped it in my pocket. Just one thing, Tom. What about the rest of her team? Are they also being held? One other person was taken into custody, Tom said. The others have been asked to remain in Bogota for a while. I'm really not at liberty to say any more than that. Okay. Thanks for all your help. I'll be in touch. We shook hands and he left the office. Bill motioned for me to remain behind. Once we were certain Tom was out of the area, Bill closed his door and turned to me. This isn't good, Rick, he told me. It could impact your security clearance and possibly even your job. You need to get a handle on this ASAP. I understand, Bill, I said. I gave him an abbreviated version of what I already knew. I didn't tell him what I had planned with Ernesto and Deidre, however. He listened, shocked at what he heard. I have an appointment to see a lawyer tomorrow. I intend to personally deliver the divorce papers to her in Colombia. All right, listen, you have plenty of comp time coming to you. Take a couple of weeks, do what you've got to do, and get this under control. I will, Bill, I said. Thanks. I went home and started going back through Marcy's email, this time looking for specific terms or phrases. I got several hits and looked at the emails. Most of them seemed innocuous, but I found one exchange that looked promising. Are you interested in making a lot of money on our trip to Colombia? Trey asked in an email he sent about 3 months before their trip. Sure, Marcy replied. What do you have in mind? Not here, he answered. Let's meet in private after work, and I'll explain. Nothing more was mentioned for a week. Then Trey sent another email. Well, have you decided yet? Are you sure this will work? She asked. Of course, he said. I've done it before. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. All right, she answered. I'll do it. Good girl. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. I printed out the email chain, exported it to PDF, and saved it to a thumb drive with other emails. I turned to the videos, this time listening for anything that might suggest a plan to transport drugs. I fast-forwarded through the less relevant parts and caught a conversation between them the day before they were captured. I took note of the date and timestamp on the video. Are you ready? Trey asked. Tomorrow's the big day. Yes, Marcy said nervously. Good. The product will be placed in our vehicle tomorrow morning. We don't even have to touch it or see it. It'll be in boxes marked for medicine. And you're sure we won't get caught? Marcy asked. I've been on that road plenty of times, he told her. There's never been a checkpoint out there before. If this works, we'll be doing it more often. If all goes well, by the time we leave, we'll have enough money to retire. Sounds good to me, she said. Bingo, I thought to myself. I made a note of the video and saved it to my thumb drive. After collecting my thoughts, I sent an email to the kids asking them to join me in a Skype call tomorrow evening. Then I called Ernesto and told him what I found. Damn, what are you going to do? I'm going to go through the rest of the videos and her emails to see what else I can find, I said. I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow about a divorce, and I intend to hand-deliver the papers to her myself. You're coming here then? He asked. That's my plan. While I'm there, I also intend to hand-deliver this evidence to the prosecutor. You can stay with me and my family if you want, Ernesto said. I appreciate that, Ernesto. I look forward to tasting Lupe's cooking. He laughed. Trust me, you haven't eaten till you've had some of her cooking, he said. Call me when you're ready to come down, and I'll pick you up at the airport. Will do, my friend. Talk to you soon. I looked at my watch and realized I needed to send Marcy's money out. I read the pamphlet Tom gave me. According to it, the State Department's Office of Overseas Citizen Services would set up a trust fund for her, which would cost $30. Tom wrote a note at the bottom of the page telling me the trust fund had already been established, and the initial $30 fee would be subtracted from the money I sent. The OCS would then transfer the funds to the embassy, which would pass the money to the prison authorities in Colombia. The whole process could take up to 3 or 4 weeks, according to the pamphlet. I decided to use Western Union since that was supposedly the fastest way to get the funds to her. I already had all of Marcy's account details, so I logged into the Western Union site and sent all but $5. Once I verified the money was gone, I grabbed a pile of trash bags and tossed all of her things, including our wedding album, into them, not really caring if anything got messed up or not. The filled bags were then crammed into her car. I called her parents and explained the situation. They were heartbroken to hear of my plans to divorce her and tried to talk me out of it. I refused to relent, telling them this had been a long time coming. They were also upset to hear she was in a Colombian jail on charges of drug trafficking. Are you sure Marcy was involved in drugs? Her father asked. I'm certain of it, I told him. I've even got evidence I'll be giving to the prosecutor. I just need her stuff out of here. All right, Rick. We'll be over to get her stuff. I'm sorry it came to this. We had no idea things were this bad. We said our goodbyes and ended the call. A half hour later, they arrived and took her car along with the rest of her things. They were quite sad to learn what Marcy had done, but they understood my reason for divorcing her. Please stay in touch with us, Rick, her mother said as she hugged me. I will, Mom, I said. Her father and I shook hands, both realizing it was probably the last time we would see each other. I was exhausted by the time they left, both physically and emotionally. I grabbed a beer and a cigar and sat out on the back porch. I hadn't been there very long before my phone rang. It was Deidre checking in to make sure I was all right. Hey, I answered the phone. Hey yourself, she said. How are you doing? I've been better, I told her. Right now I'm enjoying a beer and a cigar. I wouldn't mind one of those myself, she said. What, a beer or a cigar? I asked. Both, actually, she replied, prompting me to laugh. You smoke cigars? I asked. I've been known to from time to time. So how did your day go? I filled her in on what had taken place and told her I had an appointment to see a lawyer tomorrow. Sounds like you've had one hell of a day, she said. Yeah, it's been a day all right, I told her. But hearing your voice is making me feel better already. Good. By the way, I have an idea, I said. What, another one? She asked sarcastically. I laughed, then told her what I had in mind. There were a few moments of silence when I finished, and I almost asked if she was still there. Finally, she responded. You know, I think that's the best idea I've heard in a long time. Let's do it. You're on. I'll fill you in on the details when I get back from Colombia. I'm looking forward to that, she said. We talked a bit longer before ending the call. I felt much better after our discussion. The next day, I went to see my attorney. I double-checked to make sure I had everything, then headed out. When I got to her office, I was ushered in by her receptionist and offered a cup of coffee, which I graciously accepted. Lisa Hawkins was nothing like Allison Hargreaves. She exuded confidence and was open and friendly. She listened to my story, taking notes as I spoke, then looked at the evidence, which included Marcy's letter and the emails I printed out. I also told her about the charges Marcy faced in Colombia. Well, that should make things a bit easier for us, she said. How much time is she facing down there? I'm told up to 12 years. 12 years in a Colombian prison, Lisa said. She's not going to have an easy time of it down there. So what are you looking to get out of this? Everything. She can keep her 401k, her clothes, and her car, I said. I've already sent most of her money down there for her expenses. The rest I want to keep. I think that's doable. Fortunately, you can file on grounds of adultery and cruelty in this state, and I think you've shown good cause for those. Also, judges take things like that into consideration when it comes time for splitting assets. Curious, how do you plan to have her served? If we use the system, it could take weeks before she gets the papers. I intend to carry the papers to her myself, I said. I hope to convince her that it would be in her best interest to sign them and be done with it. Okay, she replied. I can have these written up and filed in, say, 2 days. Would that work for you? Yes, I told her. Also, what about going after Trey, her attorney in the hospital? Are you referring to Allison Hargreaves? She asked. Yes. I got the impression Mrs. Hargreaves convinced her to turn me into some kind of fool. I tried to find out myself, but she refused to give me an answer. You actually spoke to Allison Hargreaves yourself? Lisa asked. Yes, I did. You're an awfully brave man, she said. Well, she is protected by attorney-client privilege, so she's right to not tell you what transpired between them. Also, while you can file for alienation of affection in this state, the reality is that those suits almost never go anywhere. My best advice would be to let it go and not waste your money on them. I accepted her suggestion, and we wrapped the meeting up with her promise to inform me when the papers were filed and ready to be served. 2 days tops, she said. I thanked her, paid a hefty retainer, and left. Later that day, I spoke to the kids on Skype. It was great to see them, and I wished I had better news for them. Hey, Dad, what's up? Kay asked. Hi, Dad, Rhonda added. What's going on, kids? I have some news for you, and I wanted to tell both of you at the same time. Is something wrong, Dad? Rhonda asked. Yes, your mother and I are getting divorced. Both of them gasped in shock when I said that. Why, Dad? Kay asked. Yeah, Rhonda added. Did you do something? I told them the abbreviated version of the story and finished by informing them their mother was sitting in a Colombian jail on drug trafficking charges. Are you sure she was really involved with that, Dad? Rhonda asked. Yes, Rhonda. I'm afraid it's true. I even have evidence that I'll be presenting to the prosecutor when I go down there. You mean you're going to help the prosecutor? You're going to help them put her in prison? Kay asked, his voice rising. She broke the law down there, son. I don't like it, but it is what it is. We've talked about drugs before. You know what cocaine and heroin can do. There's no way I can just turn a blind eye to that. And you know it. I know, Kay said quietly. It's just so messed up. I know, son. It is messed up, and I'm sorry. But your mom made the decision to do it, and she got caught. We talked a bit longer, and I answered all their questions. It was a tough conversation, but by the time we finished, they knew everything their mother had done and seemed to understand why I had to do what I was doing. I promised to email them an address so they could send her letters, and we ended with a tearful farewell. After we finished, I called Tom and asked him to arrange for visitation the day after I got the papers. He promised to set it up, and we ended that call. Then I called Ernesto and told him of my plans. By the way, do you know who's prosecuting the case? I asked. That would be Ricardo Montoya, Ernesto replied. He's tough, believe me. Good. When I get there, I have evidence I need to give him. Okay, Ernesto said before we ended the call. My last call was to Deidre. She listened quietly as I brought her up to speed on what had happened. We spoke for quite some time, and I felt better after we ended the call. 2 days later, Lisa contacted me to say the papers had been filed with the court and a copy was prepared for Marcy's signature. I already had my bags packed and the tickets ready to be picked up, so I grabbed my passport and a few final things, then headed out. After getting the papers from her, I called Ernesto to let him know I was on the way to the airport. Tom had sent a message saying visitation had been arranged, and I sent a message back thanking him. Ernesto met me just as I finished going through customs. We gathered my luggage and headed out to his car. "Where to first?" he asked as we settled in. "I need to see Senor Montoya first." He nodded and pulled out. When we got to the government building where his office was located, Ernesto parked the car. "I'll wait for you here, Senor Rick," he said. I nodded and went inside. I managed to find Montoya's office and was stopped by a receptionist. "Can I help you, Senor?" she asked in accented English.
Yes, por favor.
"I'd like to see Senor Montoya. I have some information on a case he's working on," I said. "You have information for me, Senor?" I heard a man ask from behind me. I turned to see a very well-dressed man standing in a doorway. "Are you Senor Montoya?" He nodded. "Yes, I am." "And who might you be?" "Rick Weston," I replied, extending a hand. "I understand you're handling the case against my wife, Marcy." He shook my hand and nodded. "Weston?" "Yes, of course. Please come in." He ushered me into his office and closed the door. "So, what is the nature of this information you have for me?" I pulled the thumb drive out of my pocket and handed it to him. "On that drive, you will find video of her and Trey Cardosa talking about moving product, which I believe refers to the drugs she was caught with," I said. "There are other videos as well. You'll also find some email exchanges. I've provided a text file that shows the URL of her web email client along with her credentials. Perhaps there's something in those emails you may find useful." He regarded me warily for a few moments before speaking. "You do realize, Senor Weston, that it's my job to put her in jail for a very long time?" "Yes, I know," I said. "So please explain why you are providing me with this evidence. Shouldn't you be helping her defense lawyer?" he asked. When I didn't answer right away, he smiled and nodded his head. Your wife was having an affair with Dr. Cardosa, wasn't she?" he asked. I nodded my head. "Yes, she was." "I see," he said with a slight smile. "And you see this prosecution as a way to get some revenge? I can understand that. I might be tempted to do the same or worse if I learned my wife was being unfaithful. But I will not stand by and let my office be used as a vehicle for your revenge, no matter how much it may be deserved. Senor Montoya, I understand how you might come to that conclusion. Yes, I'd like nothing more than to get my pound of flesh, but I intend to serve her with divorce papers. That's why I came to Bogota. I'm also a retired Army intelligence officer, and I will not turn a blind eye to someone breaking the law, not even my soon-to-be ex-wife. On top of that, I work for a global company with an office here in Bogota, and I would be derelict in my duty if I did not present you with what I know. Use the information or not, that's your choice, Senor Montoya," I said. He nodded his head when I finished. "All right, Senor Weston, I'll take a look at your evidence. How long do you plan to be in Bogota?" "A day or two tops," I said. "I'm serving my wife papers tomorrow, and hopefully I can convince her to sign them. Then I'll be heading back to the States." "Where are you staying?" he asked me. "I've been invited to stay with a colleague of mine who works in our office here. I don't have his address right off the top of my head, but I'll be more than happy to give you my cell phone number." "No need, Senor Weston. I'll see you before you leave, and welcome to Bogota." I nodded my head and accepted his extended hand. "Thank you, Senor Montoya," I said as I left. "So how did it go?" Ernesto asked when I got back to his car. "You were right," I said. Montoya is a tough son of a gun. He laughed. You have no idea. Come on, let's get to my place. Lupe has been working on dinner most of the day. We got to his house, and he set me up in a small spare bedroom for the night after introducing me to his wife, Lupe, and his children. We sat down to dinner after Ernesto said grace. Lupe brought the food out. I didn't recognize the dish she set in front of us and looked at Ernesto. It's called bandeja paisa, he said. I've eaten this my whole life. Enjoy. I didn't know where to start, so I just dug in. The plate contained meat, a fried egg, rice, beans, an avocado half, chorizo, and something called arepa that I had never heard of before, but I found it to be quite delicious. I was stuffed when I finished the plate. That was delicious, Lupe, I said when I finished. She smiled and thanked me for the compliment. When we finished, Ernesto and I sat outside with cigars and a glass of aguardiente, a fiery liquor. It was quite sweet but had a strong kick, and I definitely understood why it was called fiery water, as it burned all the way down my throat. We talked for a while about this and that, nothing too serious. Eventually, it got dark, so we headed inside and went to bed. After breakfast the next day, Ernesto drove me to the prison where Marcy was being held. I couldn't believe the condition of the place. It was noisy, crowded, and smelly. I met a man from the embassy, and together we went inside, where we were ushered into a small room. Marcy was already there, and she looked awful. Her face was gaunt, her eyes red with dark circles under them. I could tell she had lost some weight. I also saw that she was shackled to the table. She looked up at me with sadness in her eyes. I sat down across from her and opened my briefcase. I pulled out the packet and set it on the table. You once gave me a choice, Marcy, I began. Either take you back or walk away. I think you know what choice I made. She looked down, tears falling down her face. I'm sorry, Rick, she stammered. I said quietly, you plotted with Leslie for weeks before you came down here. You plotted this even longer than that. I know that you went to see Allison Hargreaves. I also know what you intended to do when you came back to the States. You probably know by now that I found the cameras you had put into the house. I know you intended to set me and Leslie up for a fall, all the while pretending to be her friend and my so-called loving wife. You know I loved you with all my heart for a quarter of a century, I continued. I did my best. I admit I wasn't perfect, and yes, I slipped once in a moment of weakness, but that was in the heat of the moment. We were almost killed out there. I swear to God I never once plotted to cheat on you or hurt you the way you hurt me. I also found the email where you admitted to Trey that you cheated on me that year I was in Korea. Remember that big fight we had? The whole time you swore you never cheated, but that was a lie, wasn't it? And you've done nothing but lie to me ever since. During our last phone call, you said just once. If I didn't mind, well, guess what, Marcy? I do mind. That last day, the day you were caught. Do you even remember what that day was? No. What was it? She asked quietly. It was our 25th wedding anniversary, I said. You couldn't even be bothered to remember that, could you? Tears continued to fall down her face as I spoke. I wanted to say more to cause her hurt, but I decided to cut to the chase. I came down here for one reason, Marcy, I said, pulling out the divorce papers. You need to sign these so we can end this sham of a marriage. But I don't want a divorce, she said pleadingly. You had Allison prepare a set of divorce papers to give me an ultimatum. Either be your willing partner or face a divorce. Face it, Marcy, we're done. I'm done with you. You're going to be here for a very long time, but I won't be waiting for you back home. Sign the papers, I added, pulling out a pen. Just so you know, I've already sent most of your money down here for your expenses and fees. It'll take a bit for it to get to you, but it's on its way. You can keep your 401k, your car, your clothes, and your personal items. Your parents already have that stuff. The rest is mine. So sign the papers, and it'll be a done deal in about 60 days. Have you told the kids about this? She inquired. Yes, I told them, I said. It broke their hearts to hear what you've turned into. I gave them an address where they can write to you. I don't know if they will or not. She picked up the pen. All right, she said quietly. You win. Where do I sign? I pointed out the places on the papers. She read as she signed, then I signed, and the man from the embassy signed as a witness. When we were finished, I put the papers back in the envelope. By the way, I noticed you've already paid for your reservation at the Ambassador Hotel in full. I really hate to see that reservation go to waste, so I'd like to take advantage of it. Go ahead, she said. I obviously won't be needing it. Thank you. And just so you know, I plan to invite Deidre to join me. I thought we could revisit what we started in Iraq. Just this once, if you don't mind. She looked at me with fire in her eyes. I shook my head. After what you've done, don't even go there. As far as I'm concerned, we're no longer married. Enjoy the rest of your life. I got up and walked out as she sat at the table sobbing. When we got outside, I saw Montoya standing by the car. He came over, shook the embassy man's hand, and looked at me. If you don't mind, I'd like to speak with Colonel Weston in private for a few minutes, he said. The man from the embassy nodded and said goodbye before getting into his car. Montoya put an arm around me. Walk with me for a moment, Colonel, he said. I haven't been a colonel for some time, Senor Montoya. Please call me Rick. He smiled and nodded. And you may call me Ricardo. Once a military officer, always a military officer, yes. He asked rhetorically. Ernesto thinks very highly of you. He's told me a lot of good things about you. You know Ernesto? I asked. Indeed I do, Rick, he said with a smile. We served in the army together for quite some time. Then he went to work for your company, Acme Global, and I became a prosecuting attorney. You know, I went through your evidence and you were right. It's quite compelling. It will certainly save my government a great deal of time, effort, and money. That's one of the reasons I decided not to charge you for criminal conspiracy, he said. I looked at him, shocked. Oh, don't be so surprised, he added. Ernesto told me what you had planned. As you may have thought, if your wife was caught with a small amount for personal use, she would have probably been a guest of ours for a couple of days, then fined and deported. Fortunately for you, however, nothing illegal was purchased, and the money you sent ended up going to a charity for widows and orphans. The nuns said they are very appreciative of your gift. By the way, he said with a smile, it was their account Ernesto gave you. I couldn't help but smile. Between your stellar record and your voluntary cooperation, I decided not to charge you, he said. However, I have to inform you that if you ever think of doing anything like that again, I'll have no choice but to take action. I hope you understand. I do, Ricardo. Thank you. No, Rick, thank you. The information you gave us will be quite useful. I know you wanted justice after what your wife and Dr. Cardosa did, but trust me, justice is coming. I understand you're on your way back to the airport? Yes, I'm going back to the States now, I said. Well, Rick, if you ever make it back to Bogota, perhaps you'll stay long enough to be my guest for dinner, he said. I'd like that very much, Ricardo. He stopped and extended a hand. I shook his hand, nodded, and thanked him for everything. We parted ways and I walked back to Ernesto's car. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, Ernesto, everything is fine, I said. But I'd better get to the airport so I don't miss my flight. We got in his car and drove to the airport. When we got there, he turned to me. Boss, I'm sorry I didn't follow your orders. I couldn't do what you wanted. If you like, I'll turn in my resignation. Don't apologize, Ernesto. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you were the only one who did the right thing. It's me who should apologize for putting you in that position in the first place. And perhaps it's me who should resign. No, boss, don't do that, he said. I understand how you feel. If it were me, I'd probably have reacted strongly too. But it all worked out in the end. Yes, it did, I replied. Well, thank you for everything, Ernesto. I'll be in touch and give my best to Lupe and the kids. Do you think you might be back someday? He asked. Of course. Where else would I find a helping of bandeja paisa? I joked. He laughed as we shook hands. I'll be in touch, Ernesto. Take care of yourself, and thank you for all your help. Deidre met me at the Ambassador Hotel on the day I was supposed to have met her. Yes, we finished what we started in Iraq, and it was a memorable night. You know, I put in my retirement papers, she continued as we embraced. I've been thinking of a career change. Oh, I asked. What would you like to do? I was thinking about becoming a full-time wife and homemaker, she said. Really? Do you think there might be an opening coming up sometime soon? I teased. I thought I just did, she replied with a laugh. Indeed you did. You know, I've fallen in love with you, she said. And I've fallen in love with you, I told her. If it weren't for you, I don't know what I would have done. So, shall we make it official then? She asked. Even though your divorce isn't officially final yet? Why not? That is, if you don't mind. Of course not, babe, I said. Will you marry me and make me the happiest man on earth? She smiled and kissed me deeply. Yes, Rick, I'll marry you. I love you so much. Marcy and Trey stood trial in Colombia for drug trafficking and were both found guilty. Both received the maximum sentence of 12 years along with a hefty fine. Trey was sent to one of the worst prisons in the country, a crowded, difficult place that already held more than 200% of its design capacity. He didn't last very long, maybe a couple of years. It turned out that members of a rival cartel took issue with his efforts to encroach on their territory. His body was found one morning before breakfast and hastily buried. Marcy ended up in a women's prison where she fared somewhat better than Trey, but life was still very hard for her. She doesn't get many visitors, but someone from the embassy comes by periodically to check on her and make sure she's doing okay. The kids send letters and cards at least once a month, and she looks forward to the day when they can be reunited. Penny and the others were finally released from their house arrest after the trial and allowed to come home. A visibly pregnant Penny and her doctor friend were met at the airport by a process server and faced legal issues regarding their divorces. Both of them were fired from the hospital and had to leave the area to find work elsewhere. I lost touch with Leslie and Vince, but the last I heard, they were still involved in their previous lifestyle. Leslie, however, had to take a break after becoming pregnant, and they still don't know who the father is. I sold the house and bought a new one after Deidre and I got married. She's transitioning quite nicely into her chosen career path. I've told her many times there's always a place for her at work, but she says she's tired of that lifestyle and wants to spend her time making a happy home for the two of us and her cat, if I don't mind, which I don't. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.